Okay, it's 4 p.m. on Thursday, November 9th, 2017. We have a quorum, so I'll call this New Ulm Public Library Board meeting to order. First order on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, which all the committee members should have a copy of. So I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any other additions, corrections? Okay, hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Now we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the October 12th, 2017 Library Board meeting. I hope everyone's had a chance to review them. And I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I so move. I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, edits, corrections? Okay, hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Now we'll go on to the October 2017 financial report and summary. Chris?
Thank you. That begins on page 6. We're 83% through our fiscal year. Our budget is about 76.57% expended. Nothing unusual. As we come to the year's close, we strategically stop purchasing materials because we have to have the materials in hand and we have to have the invoice for it to be paid out of 2017 budget funds. So that's something we'll be looking at here in the next month, kind of shutting things down. I don't have anything that stands out, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, no news is good news in that case. Okay, I'll move on to the librarian's report, starting with the library department activities report and statistics. Chris?
Thank you. That begins on page 14. April and I attended the TDS directors meeting today, and beforehand, the 5 Brown County Public Library directors met with Executive Director at TDS, Ann Hokanson, and we were talking about the work that Ann and I are doing with the Legislative Legwork Committee through Minnesota Library Association. And what we're trying to do is increase awareness with our local groups about the Minnesota Library Association platform, which in 2019, and perhaps in 2018, but more likely in 2019, when they really talk about the budget, they'll look at how much money is going to the regional library systems, and they'll look at the formula for distributing those funds. So we want to get ahead of the game and share with our county library board, with our public library boards, with the county commissioners, with our city councilors, the Minnesota Library Association platform, and we would like each of those groups to consider supporting that platform by resolution. And so the first step is Monday night, the Brown County Library Board is meeting in Hansk at 7 p.m. I'm unable to attend, but Ann is going to go, as are 3 of the public library directors in the county, to ask the county library board to support that platform. I'm anticipating bringing it to you probably in January. Now, the county board meets twice a year, so that's why it's going to them. It's currently in a draft memo, but that's going to be finalized, and so then I'll bring it to you when it's finalized. So that meeting starts at 7 p.m. It's upstairs in the community center at Hanska if anybody's interested in attending. As a side note, Marion Klimek has been our representative for many years. She finished her final year with the Brown County Library Board. Monday night is her final meeting, so one of you will be asked to serve on that board. Meets in June and November. We had our Pumpkins with Bling event on October 24th. Almost 100 people were there and decorated 60 pumpkins, and a big thanks to Hy-Vee for donating those pumpkins. April and our acquisitions librarian Betty Roiger attended a Traverse des Sioux user group meeting on October 18th. Those meetings happen twice a year, and they're really important to share ideas, come up with standardized ways of doing some of the processes that we do in our individual libraries. Our Youth Services Librarian, Jan Caveney, has scheduled St. Nick and Crumpus to visit the library on December 5th, beginning at 6:30. That's the eve of St. Nick's Day, and funding for that comes from the Emma Gebser Fund. I looked her up. She passed away in 1949, but was very civically minded, and funding for books at the library, for St. Nick event, and some money to the Park and Rec Department comes every year. I went to Charles Anderson's New Ulm High School Careers class in late September. I've been doing that for about 5 years and find that very enjoyable. The Friends of the Library have been very busy for the past month. They made several donations to the library. They're funding Noon Tunes for 2018, and that's going to change names and format. April has some great ideas for turning that into, or just giving it new life. So be looking for some changes to what will no longer be called Noon Tunes. And the Friends also donated $500 for adult nonfiction, $500 for adult fiction, and $500 for children's and young adult materials. So big thanks to the Friends. I did receive a report from the Friends. Their book sale was last week. They made, between donations and book sales, almost $2,000, which is about $300 more than the previous year. So thank you to everyone. We had a great selection this year. We appreciate those donations and then people coming to buy them. And we take donations year round. So just because the sale's over doesn't mean we won't take more donations. The library started a partnership with Woodstone Senior Living here in town. I just got back this afternoon from delivering some materials to them. I go out every 2 weeks. Residents are providing feedback. We're trying to work out the system. I expect a volunteer to take over that process once we kind of get the hang of things. I've gone out there 3 times so far. The next series of computer classes offered by Mankato Area Adult Basic Ed will begin in February. And it will include an introduction to Excel, and that was because I asked, is that something you could do? And they said, yeah, because we had a couple people asking for it at the library. And if you stop down, the GED class or study hall type of situation happens 2-3 times a week. If you stop down, it's fantastic. There are 5-6 people with the adult basic education staff person. It's just really wonderful to see that kind of learning happening in the library. The elevator in the main building is going to be out of order. However, it says here November 6th. It's been delayed until November 27th. And then one more thing about the Friends. They are sponsoring a Barnes & Noble book fair at the River Hills Mall store in Mankato. Now, in store, it will be November 26th with, I'll be at the gift wrap table. And so will several other people. There will be a craft during the day. And if you purchase something and you tell the folks at the cash register that it's supposed to support the Friends of the Library, the Friends get a portion of those proceeds. And we're really fortunate, starting last year and continuing this year, it actually happens all week long. So Sunday through Friday, if you do any shopping in the store or online, and you tell them it's for the Friends, Friends get a portion of those sales, and they give it all back to the library. So a big thank you to them for continuing to do this. They've been doing this for probably 6 years now. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So if the elevator has been delayed to the 27th, how long is it going to be out? Till Christmas then, or?
No, Elwood has told me 2 weeks.
All right, anything else for Chris? Okay, then we'll go on to programming with April.
In front of you, you have the attendance numbers for our programs since our last meeting. Any questions on those numbers? Okay. And then in upcoming adult programs, we have on Thursday, November 16th at 6 p.m., we have author Alan Eskins visiting the library. He is going to be talking about his writing and working with a publisher. That's part of the National Novel Writing Month celebration at the library. On Tuesday, November 21st, the Minnesota Valley Civil War Roundtable will be talking about the siege of Fort Pulaski, which will be presented by Bill Harris, who is the head of the Civil War Roundtable. On Tuesday, November 28th, we have Noon Tunes with Dick Kimmel. On Tuesday, November 28th, we also have the Writers Group, which is another part of the National Novel Writing Month at the library. Those who would like to come share their writing and receive feedback from other writers are welcome to come to the library to meet with the Writers Group. It's an informal group, but it's really meant to share your writing and get some feedback on it. On Wednesday, November 29th at 6:30, we have the candy making demonstration with Sharon Schaller. We do ask for registration for that because those who attend will receive copies of the recipes that she's bringing to share. It is a demonstration only, not a hands-on class. And then she'll be returning on Tuesday, December 5th at 6:30 p.m. to do a hands-on holiday ornament class. And those who attend that class will make an ornament to take home with them. Those are, the demonstration is open to kids, 10 and up, those who can stay and pay attention to the candy demonstration, but we are limiting the class to adults since we do have limited spots available in the class for the holiday ornaments. On Thursday, December 7th, we have the Historic Loretto Hospital and Legend of Loretto presentation. That will be presented by Dan Grubner and Wade Olson, who both have special interest in those topics. And then on Wednesday, December 13th, we start the Vietnam War Screening and Discussion Program with Greg Peterson from Brown County Veteran Services. And that continues December 14th, the next evening, both at 6 p.m. So we'll be screening the PBS documentary that I'm sure you've heard about recently. And we'll be screening it all 10 parts in succession. So there are other dates that will be coming up at the end of December into February, so watch out for those dates, but these dates here are the first 2 parts. Are there any questions about upcoming programs?
April, the Writers Group, is that just going to be active during the month of November, or will that be meeting into the new year?
Right now, we just have it scheduled for the month of November, but I am open to continuing it depending on what kind of interest we see at the library.
April, the Vietnam War screening and discussions start at 6, take about a couple hours?
All parts of the documentary are under 2 hours, so they range from maybe 90 minutes down to around an hour, between an hour and 90 minutes usually.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Great, thanks,
Thank you.
April. And now we'll head back to Chris for the Strategic Planning Committee update.
The Strategic Planning Committee just met this Tuesday, so we'll meet again on the 21st at 11 o'clock. Anybody's welcome to stop in and see the work we're doing. We've gotten down to the part where we've set goals or have drafted goals and are looking at objectives. And then we'll be talking about some activities that staff will be doing to achieve those goals, and then those activities will be going out to the staff because they'll have a lot of input on that activity portion of things. I did write the New Ulm Journal article this week about the strategic planning process and asking for feedback from the public. They have written some comments on the board that is between the main building and the children's room, and I've been sharing those with the committee as we meet.
Did you get anyone who wanted to be on the committee?
No.
Okay. All right, any further questions on the Strategic Planning Committee? All right, and then landscaping update.
The landscaping committee from here met with the Wandagog board last month, and we saw some drawings, some concepts for that area, and since then, the committee, the Wandagog Sculpture Committee, has decided that they would like to independently fundraise so that they can work with the vendors that they're familiar with and donate that design, donate the final piece to the library board. And so the next meeting of that committee is Friday, November 17th at 1 p.m. They're going to look at 3 drawings, so 3 concepts for that area. I would like this board to consider putting in hostas in that bed that's just to the north of the wooden doors, and do that about the same time as we're doing the Wandagog sculpture stuff.
That's that raised bed that currently has what, the birch trees in it?
Yeah, it has 2 trees in it. Nothing else really grows. Couple of hostas. Yeah.
I think I attended that meeting also, and they had, they really didn't have, I think, a good idea as to what the total cost is going to be either. So they need to do some more investigative work as to what the costs of their ideas are going to be, and or if they could get any of that stuff donated from the local establishments, and or maybe at a discounted price.
Elwood Zabel, our building official, did attend that meeting and impressed upon them again the need for it to be ADA accessible.
That's true. Any other questions on the landscaping? All right, we'll move on to the action items, which start on page 23. The first action item is the resolution to approve the member library agreements for services with Traverse des Sioux Library Cooperative. Before we get into this, I'm going to waive the reading. It's a 50-page document. Now, even though we're a little ahead of schedule here, I don't think we have the time for that. So, plus it's a lot of legalese terminology. But I will ask Chris. Chris has read it, and then the contract has been reviewed by the city attorney as well. But maybe, Chris, you can give us a Reader's Digest version of what this all entails.
Now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to do that before we get into it.
Okay, now. Historically, TDS has provided one contract that includes 2 or 3 parts for the services that we receive, and we sign one document every year. Well, they've changed how they're working the contracts and created a one membership agreement that renews annually, just automatically. You're a member. And that's open to any library. And when Ann Hokinson was here, she talked about that. You know, the special libraries like our Historical Society, school libraries, academics, etc. They can all be members. There are no fees. There's no cost to be a member of Traverse des Sioux. The rest of the items on our list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items, those are service contracts that come with a cost. And so they've broken each of them out. And the terms of agreement for each of them are dependent on contracts that we have with vendors, which is why when you look at cataloging on automation, our contract with III, that vendor goes through December 21st of 2023, because it would be detrimental to the entire TDS if one of the member libraries backed out of that contract. So you see delivery is an annual, you know, they all have different ranges. And we would be then annually signing, or the board would annually be agreeing and signing certain service contracts, but not others.
So
All these
it's almost-
contracts then are, they're handling that themselves. They do the negotiating with the vendors and all that.
Correct. TDS does that contracting. And you'll notice the telecom agreement is the one that's coming up. That's with Socrates. That was a 3-year agreement. TDS is in the process of developing requests for proposals. They're expecting to hear from 4 or 5 vendors. They have a committee. Holly, are you on that committee?
No, I'm not.
I know our public library director representative, Tim Hayes, said he is on that. So they will be checking out those RFPs and making a recommendation to the TDS board to sign an agreement with a particular vendor.
So this is almost becoming like an a la carte kind of thing where you can become a member for free, but then you can pick and choose of the other services, and then you would sign the contract and pay whatever fees will be required for that.
Correct. And it has been that way. It just didn't look quite like this.
Okay, it looked like it was all one big contract. Then.
And it really wasn't, because North Mankato is a perfect example. They're a member, but they aren't on our cataloging and automation system, but they are on delivery system. So the rest of us have the full
Right.
kit. But
So-
MLC doesn't have interlibrary loan. They do their own. So, yeah.
So this makes it a little cleaner with having them broken out, and that way it doesn't get lost in the big document.
I think that's the hope.
All right, so now that we've got the summary of that, I'll read through the resolution and then we'll take a vote. So it's resolution number 2017-38, first reading and adoption, approving member library agreements for services with Traverse Sioux Library Cooperative. New Ulm Public Library contracts for a number of services with Traverse Sioux Library Cooperative. For 2018, a revised method has been implemented for member service agreements. If approved, all will go into effect January 1st, 2018. There's the membership agreement, which renews automatically on January 1st of each year. There's the cataloging and automation. The term of agreement is from January 1st, 2018 to December 21st, 2023, to coincide with the term of TDS's contract with the automation vendor. There's the computer and network support. Term of agreement is from January 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2018. Delivery. The term of agreement is from January 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2018. There's the interlibrary loan. Term of agreement is from January 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2018. And the telecom service term of agreement is from January 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2018, to coincide with the term of TDS's contract with the telecom vendor. The contracts have been reviewed by the city attorney, and he has no concerns. So, I will entertain a motion to approve the member library agreements for services with Traverse Sioux Library Cooperative.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just a quick question. The telecom vendor, is that always just a 6-month deal?
No, we are finishing up a 3-year agreement.
Okay,
Okay, so then in the middle, so then in June, would we be then asked again to just sign the telecom service one?
Correct. You'll receive another contract in 2018, and they're looking at 3 years for the next contract.
Okay. So then if we do that, then in January, then only the ones that come due are the ones we would have to do, like the ones with the cataloging automation wouldn't be on that because it wouldn't be ready.
Correct, and a
Okay.
membership agreement. That's just an automatic renewal.
Oh, okay. But there's no fees associated with that one, so it's, okay. Any other questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Now we jump to, I think it's page 71, for resolution number 2017-39, first reading and adoption, authorizing the city manager to sign a lease agreement with New Ulm Community Access Television, or NewCat. On June 12, 2008, the New Ulm Public Library Board adopted a proposal for redesign and use of library basement storage area as a community cable access office, or a CCAO. The agreement was for a term of 3 years, with an additional 3 years at the option of NewCat. Further extensions must be approved by the New Ulm Public Library Board. At the May 11, 2017 Library Board meeting, the Library Board authorized the city attorney to prepare an extension of the building sharing agreement with NewCat that would be reviewed annually in August by the Library Board. The agreement would include a termination clause with a 60-day written notice by either party. The NewCat coordinator and library director discussed this arrangement with the Cable Commission, which requested a revised agreement with 3 years with a 120-day written termination clause by either party. This arrangement was acceptable to the NUCAT coordinator and the library director. At the August 10th, 2017 library board meeting, the library board authorized the city attorney to prepare an extension of the building sharing agreement with New Ulm Community Access Television at the current annual rate per space at $6.25 per square foot, plus 1.7% of the library's annual budgeted amount for utilities. Either party may terminate the agreement with a 120-day written notice. What follows is the lease agreement prepared by the city attorney that includes the direction provided by the library board. If approved, it would commence January 1st, 2018. It is acceptable to the NUCAT coordinator and the library director. If approved by the library board, the NUCAT coordinator will present it to the Cable Commission in late November 2017. So then the next couple of pages are the lease agreement. I can read through it if we need to. It's only a couple pages, or we can just waive the reading of that one.
I'll make the motion to approve and waive the reading.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the reading of the lease agreement. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. It's a pretty standard agreement. I did read through it. It's nothing earth-shattering. There's nowhere near the complexity of the TDS agreement. All right. So I will now entertain a motion then to authorize the city manager to sign this lease agreement with NUCAT.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? I think we've kind of covered this in the previous months pretty adequately. So, okay then, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, now we jump to page 75 for resolution number 2017-40, first reading and adoption, accepting $1,500 donation for purchase of materials. The library requests acceptance of a $1,500 donation from the Friends of the New Ulm Public Library for the purchase of materials. The funds will be expended as follows: $500 for adult fiction, $500 for adult nonfiction, $500 for children's and young adult. The Friends of the Library will pay invoices as they are received, so this donation will not be deposited into Fund 212. It is expected that these funds will be expended by June 2018. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the $1,500 donation for purchase of materials.
So move. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next resolution is on page 76, resolution number 2017-41, first reading and adoption, accepting Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund Legacy grants for programs. The library was awarded Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund Legacy grants in the amount of $800, Life Living Series, and $800 for the Abbey presentation from Traverse to Sioux Library Cooperative in October 2017. These grants will help fund 3 speakers in January 18, which I'm assuming is for the Life Living series, and an author visit in April 2018. So I will entertain a motion to accept the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund grants for programs.
I so
I'll
move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, the next resolution is on page 77, resolution number 2017-42, first reading and adoption, approving the use of $500 from Fund 212 donations and memorials to help fund the April 4th, 2018 presentations of children's author Avi. New Ulm Public Library and Martin Luther College are partnering to sponsor a visit from author Avi to New Ulm on April 4th, 2018, during which he will give 4 consecutive presentations held at Martin Luther College, or MLC, including 2 presentations to school-age children, 1 presentation to MLC students, and one evening presentation to the general public. Avi's total speaking fees are $2,500. MLC has contributed $300. Southern Minnesota Reading Council has contributed $200, and New Ulm Public Library has received $800 in legacy grant funds to help fund the presentation. MLC has also donated its use of the auditorium for the presentations. These presentations will give Brown County area residents, especially children, the chance to engage with one of the world's finest and most awarded children's authors. Avi was honored with the Newbery Medal for Crispin Cross of Lead and received a Newbery honor for Nothing But the Truth. He has written books for many age groups and in many genres, and he writes his books to reach out to children who might feel lonely, frustrated, or isolated, or suffer from a learning disability. Attendees will have the chance to ask questions and may be able to have the book signed. If approved, funding would come from Fund 212-5500-36506 donations, Children's Memorial, which has a balance of $13,358.55. So the following slide pages in the presentation, and I think up on the screen, is more information. So before we move on with the resolution, I guess April's going to give a little summary.
Yes. I wanted to tell you a little bit about author Avi and the presentations that we would like to invite him to give. He is a children's and young adult author, mainly younger children's grade school ages. He has written 7 young adult books also. He personally identifies with lonely, frustrated, and isolated children, and has a personal focus on reaching children with learning disabilities because he himself suffers from a learning disability, dysgraphia, which causes him to rearrange letters and numbers in his own writing and reading. So that's kind of where he's coming from with his writing, and his goal is to make reading fun, make people excited about reading, kids excited about reading, even those who might be suffering from learning disabilities. He won the Newbery Award for Crispin Cross of Lead, and he's also received the Newbery Honor for some of his works. And as you can see here, he's won other awards like the Boston Globe Horn Book Award, and he's been recognized several times for ALA notable books. He's authored over 70 books in total, including the ones you'll see here. And many of those books focus on young protagonists. And he writes in popular forms like adventure, mystery, thriller. And many of those forms also include historical characters or settings. So they might be set in historical periods or explore historical events with fictional characters. So one example of that would be his book, The Fighting Ground, which you can see is the 3rd book over here in the image. That's set in the Revolutionary War with fictional characters. So they're exploring people's experiences, particularly young people's experiences during the Revolutionary War. Another one of his books, my personal favorite that I read when I was younger, was True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle, which is set in 1832 and talks about sea customs at that time, as well as women's roles and how that would have, how those kind of things would have affected the way the story in that book takes place. He, as I said before, he intends all of these books to draw in reluctant readers because he feels that he himself would have been a reluctant reader had he not found his passion in writing. So within TDS libraries, we have 67 unique Avi titles out of the over 70 that he's written. And in New Ulm alone, we hold 30 unique Avi titles. His books have circulated 747 times at the New Ulm Public Library since we've added them to our collection, which is about 25 circulations per title. So his books have been moved a lot through our system and in our library. One thing to note too is that his books are often used in school curriculum, so he's a pretty popular author with teachers also. So for our visits, our Avi visit for New Ulm, we're partnering with Martin Luther College, and the presentations would take place on April 4th, 2018 in the Martin Luther College auditorium, which they are donating their use of. So we'll have 4 presentations. 2 of them will be during the day for elementary and middle school students. And so we're hoping that those students would be bused over to Martin Luther College to have the chance to listen to Avi. And then he would meet with Martin Luther College students for about a half an hour presentation. And then in the evening, we would have a general public presentation, and that would be free of charge to Brown County area residents, as well as those who wanted to travel further. And we may be able to offer book signing. We're kind of working out the details of the scheduling with that. Looking at funding, the total speaker fees for all 4 visits, and this includes travel and everything, is $2,500. So Martin Luther College has already donated $300, as well as the in-kind use of their auditorium, which for 4 presentations would be about $400, we're estimating. The Southern Minnesota Reading Council has donated $200. We've received $800 through the Legacy Grant from TDS. So you can see here we have about we have the funds left here to raise would be $250 we're hoping to ask from the Friends of the Library. And then we're hoping to support these visits with $500 from the New Ulm Public Library, and then our staff time with publicity and setup and coordination would be an in-kind donation. And then we're still seeking about $450 from partners. Chris and I do have a list of people we'd like to ask, or organizations in the community, but if you have other ideas, I'm very open to those as well. So what we would like to ask the library board is the approval of the $500 from the Children's Memorial Fund balance.
So even with the $500, you still get the, looks like, what, $700 short that you're
Right.
looking for others. Now, if that money is not raised, then what happens?
Then we would continue to look for other donations, but if we're not able to raise that money, we would have to cancel the
Okay, so he wouldn't be
presentations.
willing to come down on his price that you know of for this. He's got a firm $2,500 speaker fee.
Right.
Okay. So then, so if that does happen, then basically the $500 would just remain in the budget
Right.
or in the fund.
Correct.
Okay. All right, other questions for April? Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
So based on that, I will entertain a motion for approving the use of $500 from Fund 212 donations and memorials to help fund the April 4th, 2018 presentation by the children's author, Avi.
So move.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions, concerns?
Yeah, the only thing I would have on that is, has anyone heard him speak before? Okay, I mean, I just wonder how they go over or whatever, but we have no information on that at all.
I would guess we could YouTube it
Yeah,
and look them up and just confirm before we actually spend the money. That might not be a bad idea.
When I took it to the Legacy Committee, they were very excited and wanted to, they approved it and didn't have any questions for me on the overall plan, but they were really excited and wanted us to share our materials out even to their libraries that were further reaching from us.
So now, is there going to be like a bigger push on the library's part of you to promote this?
Yeah, this is a big deal.
Okay. Okay. All right, any other further questions, concerns? All right, then hearing none, then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Now we jump to page 85. Should be the last resolution, and before we get into this one, again, Chris, if you can give us a little update as to what's going on with this?
Sure. I have been interested in potential partnerships with schools and public libraries for a while, and Ann Hokinson reminded me at the directors meeting today that it was just soon after she had started in January that the library directors, after a meeting, watched a webinar where they discussed this very thing, and it was with a school public library system in Washington State, and that it was going well, and there were challenges, as there are with a new project. Since that time, it has been pushed, adopted by several schools in Minnesota. Most recently, Duluth is going on board with a partnership between the public library and their school system. St. Paul has an initiative. It's called Library Cards for All, and it's really a push to connect kids with public libraries throughout their lives, to develop connections with the kids that continue through high school, to develop lifelong readers, to make connections with the schools, with the teachers, so it begins conversations and training opportunities between public librarians and school librarians, media specialists, teachers. It's new for TDS. We would be the pilot, and one of the reasons why, well, there are a couple of reasons why MVL, Minnesota Valley Lutheran, is the test case that we would like to try. One, because we have a connection with our Martin Luther College, which is part of TDS, and the MLC library director wants to get those MVL kids into their library as well as the public library, and we can do that with a public library card. One of the other big reasons is because it's a small group of kids with really complex complexities, like they live all over the place, and how would we manage that? Our Seth Erickson, our technology automation librarian at TDS, is really excited about the guts of that. I want the opportunity to show what New Ulm Public Library can do for them and for their staff. I want to be able to just make it a little bit easier to talk, that, yeah, this is one way where we can start the conversation about how we can work together, and who knows what could develop. And since we started this talk with MVL, I've received communication from Jeff Bertrand, superintendent at New Ulm Public School, who is interested in doing this throughout the public school. And I said, hang on, we're working on it. I'd like to get out some of the kinks. What I see happening is a unique borrower, as in here, I am staff member, I'm a female at New Ulm Public Library. Well, and Geraldine is lives in town, female user. We would create a unique user who is a student who doesn't have that New Ulm address, but that way, by keeping it a unique user, we can track statistics much better. And you know how I love statistics. So we could see what kind of use we get. I don't think the numbers are going to show all of the possibilities that are available with starting this kind of connection with schools, but it certainly is one way. You know, we're always talking about we want to increase circulation, we want to show what we have. Here's another way we can do that.
And then following the resolution, there's like 5 pages of, again, contract type stuff. What is that, basically just laying out the groundwork for how the relationship is established?
Right, and so this was from a template that Seth Erickson at TDS had taken from another school public library partnership. And so, as is noted on the resolution sheet, the city manager and the city attorney reviewed it. They're wondering why we even need to have the public library input into it. The school can decide that their kids want library cards, and then they would give the application forms to the parents, and yes, absolutely, any kid can come get a library card. We want to make it a simpler, streamlined process, and we want it to connect between our automation system, and so that's Sierra on our end, and then whatever the school's automation system is with their student number. And it would connect so that they have a library card, but that's all they talk. The school does not have access to our library system. So there wouldn't be any concern about any breach.
So then they couldn't order books and then have them like delivered to MVL, or, oh, they could?
That's what we're hoping.
Okay.
That's one of the things we'll be talking about, but I want to have a delivery service.
Okay,
I want to talk about physical books as well as electronic books.
okay, so there is some interaction with the library system then if they can tap into the collective to order books and stuff and
Yeah,
materials.
yes, and let me clarify. They would be able to go in just as any other patron,
Okay,
not as staff.
okay, got it.
Yes.
Okay, I would have a couple of questions on it. Number one, if this agreement goes through, then am I hearing that every student is then going to get a library card automatically?
It's what we hope to work out with MVL is that it's an opt-out. So
Okay.
that parents would be notified that this is happening, and if you don't want it, you have to sign something. It seems to work much easier for it to be an opt-out rather than an opt-in process.
And then the second question is, right now, you don't have this.
Correct.
Okay, I'm a kid in a school, I want to do a research. I don't have a library card here, go to my school library, they don't have it, the book that I want. Can I get it? I cannot then, right now, get it to the library then, can I?
You'd have to come and get a library card, yes. So you have to show up down at the library. Depending on your age, you would need a parent
Yep,
or legal guardian with you.
okay.
Chris, I have a question. Everyone seems so concerned about the privacy. Is it simply because they're underage? I mean, is it just the name, address, and the books that they're signing out? That's the only information that would be available, right?
And, I'm going to say yes, I think. I can't say, thinking about I would think there'd be a birth date in there. There's some other information. But we hold very sacred the titles and materials that people check out. We do not, that is private by state law. So it's that kind of thing that
Okay.
we need to make sure remains secure.
So it's the fact that the school staff and the library staff would both have access to the titles these children have checked out. Okay.
Yeah. Well, they
school
could.
staff would?
Yeah, they could because this, and I'm going to pull up Ann's because that was a question that was posed to Ann. So the school has access to the card number, but the two systems, as I said, don't talk to each other. They talk just to switch that information so that we know what students there are, and then they get a library card. A teacher can't see the student's library record unless the student logs in to the patron side and shows the teacher. But some districts default to a PIN that every teacher knows. And so the kids may have to change their PIN if they don't want staff to know that information. By signing the data agreement, that means that if a teacher did use the number and PIN without the kid's knowledge to get in, that would be a breach. And that would be something that the school would have to, then enforce. So they would be disobeying the school's protocol and then are ultimately open to any discipline. and vice versa, public library, that's not our role to go in and, we're not checking what people have checked out.
So if this goes through, then I take it then you're hoping to get all the schools in the area to eventually come on.
I would love to. I think there are things that we haven't thought about yet.
I don't know, if the kids already have a library card, will they know that so they don't get a duplicate?
No, we're probably going to have to live with the fact that there will be duplicate cards, and that may end up being okay. One of the things, if you agree today to let me go forward with this, is we would talk about these guidelines that we would set on student cards. Do we want to allow only a limited number of checkouts? How do we want fines to work? There are some questions related to that. If we make it a very limited card and they want more, then they come in with their parent and get a general library card. Our checkout limit is 50 items. So those are the kinds of questions that we've been talking about. And that's where Seth is ready to roll, and I'm telling him, wait. We need to talk about whether, in fact, you would agree to let us be the beta for this.
When you're talking limited, what are we talking about?
Well, White Bear Lake is doing this, and they have a limit of 2 physical items.
Okay.
How long have they been doing it? Do we know?
I don't know.
It'd be interesting to see how much it's actually used.
And when you say 2 physical items per
Student.
student?
Per student
what?
card.
For what length of time?
For
Per month?
checkout period time, I don't know their checkout
Okay.
time.
All right.
And again, that's another thing that, we would talk about. So
Okay.
there are details.
Yep.
All right, so I'll read the resolution, and then we'll take a vote. Resolution number 2017-43, first reading and adoption, authorizing library director to discuss potential partnership with Minnesota Valley Lutheran High School and Traverse des Sioux Library Cooperative. The library director requests authorization to discuss a potential partnership with Minnesota Valley Lutheran High School and Traverse des Sioux Library Cooperative. This partnership would be modeled on the nationwide Public Library Cards for All initiative that simplifies and streamlines student access to public library resources. Attached is a memo from TDS Executive Director Ann Hokinson that explains the project and a draft memorandum of understanding. MVL was selected as the test case primarily because of its low student population and enthusiasm from the Martin Luther College Library Director and New Ulm Public Library Director. Note that recently the District 88 Superintendent has inquired about a similar partnership for all New Ulm public school students. The city manager and city attorney have reviewed the memorandum of understanding. They don't object to the terms of this agreement, but they question the necessity of the agreement. If MVL wants its students to have library cards, the school should require this, which means all privacy issues are between the school, students, and parents. For the city to be protected, we would want to implement the city's rights under Section 2.2B of the agreement to make sure that we have parental consent. The TDS Automation Coordinator has reviewed the city attorney's comments and responded that based on his knowledge, schools want to know that their student data privacy is being respected, and libraries have the same concern with their patron data. Because we plan to keep library patron data, barcode number, in the school students' information system, some kind of agreement is good to have. Normally, libraries don't want anyone except the patron to view that library data, but an agreement of this kind allows teachers and administrators to view that library data through the student information system. The same applies for sensitive school data uploaded into the library system. And MOU like this officially acknowledges that the data exchange is happening and that all parties are aware of the privacy implications. The TDS Executive Director noted that this agreement format is emerging as best practice. If authorization is granted, the Library Director will proceed to discussing the logistics of the project and establishing parameters for the student card use. For example, restrictions on number of items borrowed. If the project continues to develop, the library board will have the opportunity to authorize the final student card parameters and memorandum of understanding. So I will entertain a motion now to authorize the library director to discuss the potential partnership with MVL and the Traverse des Sioux Library Cooperative.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions, concerns?
I would like to add that I heard today at the directors' meeting that the MVL school board will be discussing this next week. The principal is very excited about the opportunity.
So does the school board need to vote on it then too, as well?
They'll be doing the same thing that you're doing.
Okay, so basically both parties have to agree before this could go on then.
And the principal would like this to happen sooner rather than later, like next semester. So if that does in fact go through the school board, and if you agree, if the school board agrees next week, and Seth is ready to go, I'm anticipating bringing something hammered out in detail at the next library board meeting.
What exactly was the city manager and the city attorney questioning?
They thought that this could be handled at the school level, that the school could send library card applications home.
Gotcha.
And then we would be out of it from a legal
Yep.
point of view. Any other questions?
Yeah, one other thing, and then you said Duluth and St. Paul, have you talked to them at all?
I have not.
Has anybody?
Anne is on a Department of Education committee that is looking at these partnerships. And so she's the one who's been connecting.
So hopefully, if there were any problems, he would be
Yeah.
mentioning it.
I haven't talked to any of them. Just today, I heard from one of our TDS librarians who went to the conference last month and was in on a session where the White Bear Lake School talked about this. And that's when I found out they have a limit of 2 physical items.
Okay.
And no doubt about it, there will be bumps.
Mhm.
That's part of being a beta. I'm willing to give it a try if you are.
Anybody else?
Do we need to include in the resolution of the motion that the pursuit of the negotiations to establish the parameters of the card, the borrower card, is subject to the approval of the MVL school board? Or would we not need to include that kind of language?
Carl, I don't know that that is up to them. That's our library card. I think that's set by the public library.
Then I'm fine with it as it stands.
Anything else?
Well, if I'm understanding then, this is a limited card, but yet the kid can come in with his parents and have a general card.
Correct. And we could decide to make this a general card. There's nothing
Okay.
saying that you couldn't just have this be a card like any other card we hand out.
Well, still, it sounds like there's still a lot of work to be done yet, but basically this is opening the door for allowing you to have the discussions and to work out the logistics and the specifics. Anything else? All right, if not, then all in favor of this, say aye.
Aye.
Right?
Any opposed? All right, motion carried. And that's it, so meeting adjourned then. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.